After much deliberation, I've decided I don't like this idea. Started doing it, it doesn't look right. We're scrapping the concrete things altogether. And we're going back to this idea, I think. Welcome back, and today we're sculpting up some industrial pipelines for our Patreon supporters to put on their tabletops. So feel free to follow along at home if you want to sculpt this up yourself, or subscribe to our Patreon and it'll be there for you right now. And of course, you know, YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, you know the drill. But without further ado, let's get into it. So there's a couple of requirements that we need to meet for these modular pipes. First of all, need to use the same flanges as the water treatment pond because they've got to connect to that. Obviously, they need to be magnetized so that they can be, you know, reconfigured for every game to keep things fresh and interesting, and so that they don't break as easily, because if they're all glued together in one solid piece, they'll end up breaking in storage and transport, which would be bad. So we're going to look at some reference imaging, and the pipes themselves I think will be pretty simple to make. It's just a cylinder with the flanges on the end. Most of the really interesting bit will be in painting to make like flaking paint and whatnot. The bit that we really need to put the detail into is where the pipes are supported. Now, on a smaller scale for indoor pipes, from all the reference imaging I've looked at, it looks like it's more or less just held in place where it's welded to whatever it's attached to, welded or bolted to whatever it's attached to. But for outdoor pipes, they end up being in like scaffolding type things, like this, from what I can see in various reference images. Look, scaffolding, more scaffolding. So what I think might work best is if we make scaffolding of various heights. Or do we want it to be modular? I'm going to need to think about that for a moment.
1 hour later.
So what I think we're going to do is we're going to make scaffolding of varying heights with a varying number of pipes in the scaffolding for connectors where you can then connect the pipes in as you like. And have them so that they match up directly to the water treatment pond. So that, you know, the heights where they go, it matches up with that. I think we'll use scaffolding something like this with like an I-beam on each side and then some crossy jig-jaggy stuff. So the first thing that we need to do is get rid of all of that stuff. We probably want to bring in our flange so that we get it at the right height. Okay, so we've imported our flanges and they're at the height that they are in the water treatment pond, I think. Fairly sure that they are. They appear to be. I don't think I moved them up or down, which is good. So we're going to use those. I just need to bring them back onto the center because at the moment they're not. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a duplicate of this because I want this to remain unaltered for purpose of hanging onto it. And we're going to make it so that these are then flipped around appropriately. Then we're going to make two I-beams that just come up. We'll cross them and we'll do a little thing to make it look like it's supporting the bit of pipe. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. You know what? Scrap that idea. The more I look at it, the more stupid it looks. So instead, I think what we'll have is a concrete pillar with just a shape to support it, basically. Let's try the concrete pillar and see how that looks, actually. I'm just going to bring that back. Call this beams. Let's see how the concrete pillar goes, see if that looks any better. Okay, I just had a thought for how I think we can make this work. Rather than have this come up, what if instead we had rods that came across and like were banded onto these at each height? Because the main problem is getting it to look like this bit is supporting the top pipe, not the bottom pipe is supporting us, has a support coming out of it attached to this top pipe. So what I'm thinking we'll do is we'll have the concrete triangle rotated 90 degrees so that it's coming up, and we'll have one on either side, and then we'll have plates that are bolted to that coming across and attaching to like a band thing that goes around the pipe. Yes, I have an idea. Let's do this and we'll see how it looks. After much deliberation, I've decided I don't like this idea. Started doing it, it doesn't look right. We're scrapping the concrete things altogether. And we're going back to this idea, I think. So, what we're going to do, we'll have an I-beam go up each side. There'll be a plate at the bottom, which it is welded to, that'll be bolted into the ground. Then there'll be a beam that runs across underneath each of the pipes. And then just like a bit of like metal or wire that will just loop over the top and then get bolted in. Keep it simple, you know. Okay, so that's the basic shape of the support, I suppose. And we can just move these feet up and down to adjust height and have some curvy bits of pipe that match up with the various heights of this piece. And we'll just make this piece at a couple of different heights, and we'll also do a version of it with only one pipe, naturally. And I think it should come out pretty well. All it really needs now is detailing. I mean, the detailing will probably be, need to put some welds in here around the bottom where these bits join, as well as the loops over the top and some bolts and stuff. So yeah, I think we're about 20% of the way there. Got the basic structure down.
One very stupid mistake and so much work later.
Okay, I did a stupid. I've done a whole bunch of work on this, and I did press record. However, it was set to be just my ugly mug, so no view of what I'd actually done, which is unfortunate. So just to quickly run you through what we did. We've added the welds onto where different bits of this I-beam would be joined, and to do that we put some control loops in, we marked some seams where we want to cut away for the UV, and we also added to a vertex group called welds, the vertices that we wanted to have, well, gain the texture. There's also a subsurf division, so there's enough geometry in there for it to do its thing. We also took some toruses, cut them in half, extruded them down to make some like metal bands, clamping this pipe in place, bolts underneath. It works quite well. We added bolts into the faceplates off of there, and we also added some nice little touches around the bottom with some bolts to have this thing bolted into the ground it would be sitting on, which has brought us to this point. Now, I think what we'll do is, rather than trying to have our bends built into this support structure, we will have just various radiuses of 45-degree bends. Or we might have a really tight 90, a looser 45, and then a looser 30, and you can just plop a support between them depending on what angle you ultimately want. I think that's probably the cleanest way to do this. I'm also tossing up whether I want to have a version of this that's closer to the ground, which I think I do. I want it to be able to come down as well. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do, I think. Excellent. We now have a short, stubby little support that only goes, like, what's the height of this thing? Actually, this is probably going to give, actually no, that's the center of that. 45 mil tall. Yeah, that's pretty short. It's, you know, kind of the height of a space marine, so that'll make a nice little barricade type thing to hide behind. So now we've got our two different heights. We probably want some pipes to go between them. So what I think we're going to do for this go-between bit, for changing the height of the pipeline, is we're going to make a copy of this, and we're just going to use these bends as is. I think they'll work just fine. There we go. We now have a pipe that can go between the two levels of the supports. And, you know, if you have a double support, you just print a second one and just flip it round, and it will fit together nicely. Okay, so here's the plan for the 90-degree bend. We want it to be nice and tight, and we want it so that the supports... Let's grab this one. Yeah, so we want it so that the supports, there'd be like one more or less here, and then one kind of here, not too far apart. Which means we want the radius of our torus that we're going to use as the base to be a little bit more than half the width of this support, so that there's a little bit of space for the other one to fit. Basically, the width of this support plus the depth of it on Y, which is like 10 mil. So if we go, so this is 25, is half of it. Yeah, 25 would be half, so plus another 10. So if we go 35, we'll go with a radius of 40 millimeters. That should give us a nice bend that'll fit in there really swell. So we'll get rid of that. We'll bring in our torus, get rid of it, attach the flanges, and see how it fits. Print them and stick them together on the table, they'll be something like that. Keep in mind that this is very similar height to that of a Space Marine, so it's not very big. It'll end up being like about that sort of size, which, once there's a whole bunch of other pipes going off it, should look just fine. Now we just need to add our bolts in, and the 90 degree will be done, and we're going to use basically the same process for doing a 60, a 45, and a 30 degree bend as well. And there we go. We now have 4 pipes of varying angles, which you could use to make basically any angle you'd really be able to need to make on the tabletop. Just by combining them together, throwing a support in between each one, and you're good to go. So the only other thing that we really need for pipes would be a single support, only holding one pipe, because we've got 2 supports that hold 2 pipes. I suppose we should probably make one that holds just a single pipe. And I mean, it's as simple as just deleting one of the rungs, deleting one of the pipes from it, and just adding it. I don't think you really need to see that, because that's very simple. It's just deleting the stuff we don't need, stitching it together. So I'm now going to go and do some test prints, and either it'll be a success and we'll have a finished product, or it will not be a success. Well, it still will be a success. We'll find errors. That's a definition of success, and we'll be able to fix them before releasing this into the wild. So we'll be back with one of those two things. Well, there we go. It's all printed out, and it's come out reasonably well. Although we probably could have used stronger magnets, because when I threw it in the air, it didn't hold together. Although, I mean, to be fair, you probably shouldn't be throwing your terrain in the air. But it's come out quite well, and, you know, the scale's quite good. Here's a poxwalker standing next to it, so it is fairly large, which means you fill this up with, you know, things, and you could say it's line of sight blocking if you want to, or it's cover, whatever you want to do with it. I think it's going to look great for the water treatment plant when I paint it up for the Fallout Wasteland Warfare sewage treatment plant table that we're currently making, that we're getting close to the end of. And of course, if you want any of the things that we have sculpted up, they are either available on the Patreon if it's close to when they were released, or they're available for individual purchase later from ordnancewargaming.com.au. So of course, like and subscribe if you want to, or don't. I don't really care. And we'll see you next time.